You're listening to the House of Wellness right across Australia. Thanks to Chemist Warehouse, the home of real brands and real savings.
Well, being healthy is more than just watching our diet and getting physically fit. It's also about being brain fit as well, because when we feel happy and focused and confident, well, pretty much everything functions better. Now, someone who can help us with getting our brain in shape is Dr. Jenny Brockis, otherwise known as the Brain Fitness Doctor. Doc, welcome back to the program.
Thanks very much. Great to be with you.
It's great to have you on. Last time we had you on, we had so much interest in this. Now, when we talk about brain fitness, just remind everybody what we're really talking about here.
We're really talking about sort of how well we think. If we look after our brain so that it's sort of healthy, then not only do we think better, but we feel better as well. And that takes into account not just our brain, but also our body. So it covers all bases.
Dr. Jenny, I know so many people are worried as they age, particularly about Alzheimer's and dementia, and there is so much information about how you can prevent, to a certain extent, these diseases. Do you have any tips or what we should be doing to keep our brain healthy before old age?
Absolutely, and you're right, there is a lot of worry out there, and we do know that genes obviously can play a role, but we know too that it's our lifestyle choice that makes the biggest influence, or has the biggest influence on our health and well-being. And while we can't say, yes, you can definitely prevent dementia by, looking after your brain and doing the exercise and eating right and socializing and things like that, it's all about protecting ourselves as best as we can. And certainly the research supports that the more we follow that pathway, the more we can protect ourselves to the best of our ability. And your previous comment about the research that's come out about men and women just can't be friends.
Yeah.
I have trouble with that, because I think that our ability to socialize and be friends with each other is enormously important to our health and well-being and to our brain fitness. Socialization is incredibly important to us.
Well, that's interesting, Jenny. So we don't always think it's education and intellect. A lot of it revolves around social interaction, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We are social creatures, and we're wired to connect with each other, and our relationships with each other are incredibly important. And they don't all have to be romantic. I think it's our friendships which matter as much as our families to us for our health and well-being.
So, Jenny, with your specialty there in brain fitness, are you worried then? Are you concerned in any way, shape or form about the move that all of to the social platforms, so that human interaction as we know it, as we knew it when we were 15 and 20 and 30 and 35, it's all changed now? It's
changed beyond recognition, and it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's fantastic, because it enables us to connect with each other so easily. We can connect with friends and people we know around the world in just a few taps on the keypad. But also, it's leading to a greater sense of disconnect. And my concern sometimes is that the social media platforms, things like Twitter and Facebook, we see some horrendous. We see the dark side of people coming out on that, where people say the most dreadful things about other people that they don't even know. And fail to realise the significant impact that can have on somebody's health and well-being. And we've had sort of tragedies unfold where people have taken their own lives or developed severe mental illness because of this social disconnect and people sort of being nasty to each other using these social media platforms.
I know we have been so educated, Dr. Jenny, about how to exercise physically for the rest of our body, and you're saying that has a lot to do with helping out our brain health as well. But are there any specific exercises that we can do to increase or improve our brain health? I know my mum loves Sudoku and crosswords. Does that help?
Yes, if she likes the Sudoku, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, she's got to keep doing the harder puzzles, because with stretching your mind, it's about doing something new. So if she likes Sudoku, that's great. But what else could she be adding into that, as an alternative? Because the more mental activities we engage in, the better for our brain. So mix it up, do a variety of different things, and then raise the bar, basically, so that you're always adding that little bit of extra mental stretch. I think it's sometimes nice to pick something that you don't think you're going to be very good at all, because that really makes you have to work hard with your brain.
So she should go skydiving next?
While doing Sudoku. Gian, let me ask you, as an elite athlete, when you were swimming, were there days there where you felt physically fit, but just standing on the block waiting for the gun, you weren't feeling as sharp as you did the day before or as you did the next day?
Yes.
And what did you put that down to? Because with that intense training and that overall, you had people looking at every part of your performance, what would you put that down to when you were having a slow brain day?
I wonder a lot, as Dr. Jenny has been saying, there is such a cohesion or a connection between your overall health and your brain and your mental strength at that point in time. So for athletes, I was very fortunate that I understood where I got my confidence from, and my confidence and my mental strength was from knowing how much work I had done in training prior to race day. Right. So I used to be able to get up on the blocks and say, right, I've done more work than any of you other girls standing up here. Get out of my way.
Yes.
And that's where I got my confidence from. So if I had not a great block of training in the lead up to a particular race, that affected my mental state on race day, because I didn't have any connection of how to get that confidence back. For others, they just have an innate ability to be able to say, I've got this. Yes. I am good. Yeah. I will win this race. Whereas others have to actively work at it. So it's all very individual and different to certain individuals.
And Doc, that would be most of us, wouldn't it, who would have to work at it, because only the elite athletes who train, in this area and are able and learn how to flick that switch to go, right, I'm on and I'm going to win. But that's not all of us. That's not most of us.
I guess that's very true. It isn't all of us, but it is something that we can all learn to, practice getting better at. So I am fascinated to hear that you say that, John, because it's so important to have that ability to act on that inner driver and to say, yeah, I've done the work, I've done all the preparation, I am ready, and just go for it.
And you can trick your brain as well.
You can.
Can you? You can really Yeah. There is so much where people say the power of positive thought, and some people really dismiss that, but you can trick your brain. If you only allow those positive affirmations to come in and absolutely block the negative, it can turn around a situation very quickly, can't it?
It can indeed, and I think we can sort of shift our thinking. It doesn't have to necessarily be that switch, but we can gradually shift ourselves into that more positive mindset by just checking in with our language that we use for ourselves, because sometimes we tell ourselves these stories that we buy into and start to believe because we've repeated them so often, and they're often not true. So often we've developed these, what they call limiting self-beliefs. So that can sort of have the reverse effect and diminishes our confidence if we say, actually, I keep telling myself this, but where's the validity of this? Is this true? And if it's not, then all of a sudden that enables you to think, perhaps it's time to put in place a better story that's going to fit me better and help me in the future, so that you automatically look towards the positive rather than veer back towards the negative side.
All right. And because it's a house of wellness, Jenny, we talk about exercise and diet all of the time. Yeah. But I know myself, if I'm going to host the morning show, for instance, if I do it, I like to train before the show. And when I say train, I mean it can be a walk, it can be a run, it can be anything simple, but just a little bit of movement. And if I don't do that and arrive at the studio having just crawled out of bed, having had a coffee and then try and be sharp, it makes such a difference just to do a little bit of something.
Yes, absolutely. And all the research would support that. It's amazing how many people I meet who would say exactly the same thing. If they get out there and do, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes of walking or whatever it is, it just sort of it does make you sharper and you feel ready for your day. And I've got one friend who says, she doesn't function well unless she's been out and done her training. She loves to get up. She's an early bird and loves to get out there and sort of do a walk or a swim or a kayak or something. And we don't all have that time available to us to do that necessarily, but we can all do something. And it's so known now that exercise primes the brain to function better, that, we are setting ourselves up to have a much better day if we get out there and just do some form of physical activity.
Okay, so you've touched on one. I know that some people are always tired, always fatigued. Do you have maybe 5 top tips to boost your mental energy?
First thing is to get enough sleep, because I think sleep is the biggest thing that being cut back by many people, sometimes inadvertently, but sometimes people are choosing to cut back on sleep.
Oh, I'd like to increase my sleep, I tell you what. Can never have too much.
And just adding an extra 20 minutes of sleep each night can make a huge difference to how much mental energy we'll have the next day. So that's the first tip. Second one is to always include some element of physical activity during your day, preferably in the morning, but at some stage during the day to get your heart rate up, to get, your breathing up to that huffy-puffy stuff, but also just to be up and walking around more so we're more physically active and not sitting so much. Thirdly is to look for those sort of foods that support us. And, there's so much out there about diet today, but it's about sort of looking to add in more good stuff and worrying less about, I mustn't eat that because it's bad for me. I think if we just naturally add in more good, we're not looking for the bad stuff as much.
Yeah.
Well, that's the theory anyway. The other thing is, of course, to socialise, be out there with people, interacting with people, and, having friends, whichever sex they are, and, of course, stretching our mental muscle, getting into something that's a bit different, a bit new, that's exciting, because we as kids we're so curious.
Yes.
And as grown-ups we sometimes, don't allow ourselves to have that joy or that fun of doing something a bit different and just having a bit of a play and have a bit of a explore.
All right. All great tips for us, Jenny. It's terrific to have you on the show. Thank you very much for doing that. The brain fitness doctor, and just so we're all very clear on this on the House of Wellness, the new terminology for when you're exercising well, according to the doctor, is when you get to the puffy stuff. So
techno jargon.
We'll talk to you again soon, Jenny. Lovely to have you on the House of Wellness. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.